Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 817 podcast. I'm Jimmy here with my co-host EJ, and last week, thanks to everyone for tuning in for our District 11 panel. We had a ton of fun hosting that. It was really cool to get all 5 candidates on board and talking about the future of District 11. How are you feeling about it?
Dude, I mean, it's first time in Fort Worth history to add an extended city council. So we had District 10 and District 11 added this year. We hosted the first inaugural Royally True debate. We had all 5 candidates, which is still hold to be the only true panel to do that. It's nice to be a part of history while we're over here just hanging out, not really, the amount of messages I got thanking us for doing it. Which is awesome to see who shared it. It's great. And to also welcome all the new people who could be listening to the 817 podcast. For those of you who are new, who heard the District 11 candidate panel, our regular is every Monday me and Jimmy, we talk about Fort Worth, politics, trends, news, what's going on. We highlight 3 short stories. We talk about a big story, and then we end with our wins and losses. And so if you're new to the pod, you're going to feel what it's like on a regular basis when we're not doing a District 11 panel. What was your take on it?
I really enjoyed it. I appreciated everyone, coming, being candid, and really sharing their visions for District 11. I think the thing that shines through most of all is that we have 5 candidates who are all very passionate about Fort Worth, whether that is they grew up here or they chose to relocate here and dig in roots. It's 5 people that are very passionate about the community and that have deeply invested themselves in the community for a long time. And so I think that's something that we can just be thankful for the candidates that we've got.
Yeah. And our big story today will be breaking down the District 11 panel, as well as District 4, District 7, and the mayor candidate forum by the Fort Worth Report. But let's go ahead and dive into short stories. And this one, I guess, is the first short story is an exciting one. How do we want to explain this to people who've been listening to the 817 pod for, almost, 3 years now?
Yeah, I mean, it was June of 2020 that we started.
Yeah.
At least June of 2020 that we recorded. I don't know if we posted until July or maybe even August. But yeah, my time in Fort Worth and with the 817 is my days are numbered. I don't have an exact number of those days, but we've put our house on the market. We're gonna be traveling full time for at least a year before we land internationally. So yeah, the 817 is one of the few things that I don't have an immediate replacement for in my routines. So I am definitely going to miss it. I'll miss all of the passionate listeners, all of you that respond, that engage with us, that see us around town and say something and start a conversation. Yeah, I'll definitely miss all of that. But
so what's that saying there is, after, we have a few more weeks together, Jimmy and myself hosting this awesome podcast. I'm interested to know your guys' take. For me, I've gone back and forth hey, is this a great excuse to just shut it down? Hey, Jimmy's gone. Hey, we did a good run. We've changed some minds. We've given a lot of fresh perspective. And I think battling with what to do post Jimmy has been a hard thing on my end. On my end, I do have a short list of co-hosts I'm vetting and looking to talk to and see if they'd be interested in joining me on the pod. If you're someone who you think, hey, I've been a consistent listener, I can provide value, I could, this is something I'm interested in, please email us. You can see the email in the description, ejc@hey.com. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty 50-50 on what to do next, with the pod. I mean, a part of me feels like we've got something good. But is it the same with you not being here? That's the question. How what's the iteration? I've thought of maybe 2 more people as co-hosts, so you have like 3 of us, and then I could play more of a moderator role. I don't know. What would you like to see if an updated software of the pod happened? Like, what do you see as like, man, this could be this if me and you tried a little more on it?
I think my opinion is whatever makes you happy.
That's good. That's good.
I think that we have gotten to form a fun community around this. We've gotten to see and hear from a lot of the, I would say, under the radar change makers in the city, as well as talk to plenty of people that are part of the establishment, and we've gotten to work with people on both sides of things. I know it's one of those things where local politics is always going to be a niche audience.
Yeah.
We're not out here advertising new businesses or featuring where you should go eat on Friday night.
Yeah.
And because of that, niche things can often run dry, or just kind of fade out into existence. But I think we've got a great thing going, and maybe you'll find someone who pisses people off a little bit less than me.
And so you're going to probably hear different voices the next couple weeks. Honestly, it's a fly by night, like by the seat of our pants, just organically trying to figure out what to do. But would love to hear your thoughts or comments about what's next for the 817 podcast. But let's go ahead and move into one of your favorite topics to talk about. Let's talk about transportation. The United States Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg made a stop at DFW Airport Thursday to break ground on a $28.8 million airfield project that he says will cut down on near accidents between aircraft. There has been more than 700 incidents across the country so far in 2023 in which airfield mistakes could have led to aircraft accidents, the Federal Aviation Administration has reported. That includes a near collision between a FedEx cargo plane and a Southwest airline plane in Austin last month, which prompted an FFA investigation.
Have you watched a video of that?
Yeah.
Oh my, that's wild.
Yeah,
and that wasn't. I mean, it was it was one of the pilots that fixed it, that saw it about to happen. It wasn't anybody in air traffic control. I mean, I think it's really cool that maybe this was something that was in the pipeline for a while, but it seems like we've moved pretty quickly on making it happen, especially after that potentially horrific incident in Austin. It's cool that it's happening in DFW. I think we're getting a Terminal F sometime soon too. Like, I think they're going to be adding a terminal and adding this. Like, we're a place with a lot of space, and more so are becoming a hub for air traffic in the U.S. And it's all, I mean, anytime you get a federal official like that coming to the area to announce a project or just to visit, it's important, and it's something that they're passionate about. So I thought it was really cool to see. I still call him Mayor Pete. I just like never gonna break the Mayor Pete thought in my head. But really cool to see him come visit.
Yep. And DFW is the second busiest airport in the world, which I think that's super just cool as well to add. We learned about that in several different articles, but we also talked about that on the Economist episode as well. Pete Buttigieg also discussed and spoke out about Southwest Airlines cancellations and delayed thousands of flights after the winter storm in December. He quote said, "Every time a passenger gets on a plane, every time I get on a plane, they can do so with the knowledge that not just men and women of the FAA, but the airline and those who are designing these facilities are working to ensure they're safe." So, we're always going to be a city who leads in aviation, from American Airlines being HQ'd here, DFW being the second busiest in the world. Then you got all of our
Southwest HQ.
Yeah, Yep, in Dallas, and then the military piece, Lockheed, and all that we have also around us. So continue to see that impact, and that's why oftentimes Irving, Texas, out innovates and out succeeds Fort Worth, Texas, is because how close they are to the airport, leading to a bunch of new innovations and things like that. But yeah, so that's was cool as well to see last week.
Next, we're going to talk about housing in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. So some homelessness numbers came out for Tarrant County this week. It was higher than expected. It seemed like the city council and like Tarrant County commissioners knew that the number was going to have increased, but even so, it increased more than they would have expected. So, 1 in 4 people experiencing homelessness are part of a family. So we're not just talking about random people, like we're talking about families with children that are unhoused. The number of homeless families has increased 27% this year compared to 2020. The combined effects of the pandemic-era housing protections like rental assistance and eviction moratoriums, combined with inflation and an increase in evictions, have left more Tarrant County residents homeless, King said. Obviously, they got to throw inflation in there when they can. But this is something we talked about like 2 years ago, how even before the eviction moratoriums were starting to come up, Fort Worth was leading the way in evicting people. Mm-hmm. So this isn't surprising because we started taking these steps to kick people out of their homes 2 years ago at a rate faster than anyone else around the country. So eviction filings now in Fort Worth have reached levels higher than before the pandemic. In February, over 3,800 evictions were filed, 36% higher than the pre-pandemic monthly average. The numbers have been higher than the average since February 2022. Tough look.
Yeah. No, yep. You're I think we're now seeing the breaks of post-pandemic relief. Like it's coming. Like this this year you got the eviction filings 36%. You got the homeless you said 27%. We got Walmart in Fort Worth cutting 1,000+ jobs in Fort Worth in their e-commerce facility. You're starting to see the blue collar or just the working class and just even I would say the middle class family of Fort Worth being pressed. Even just seeing the fight we last year had the lowest levels of purchase homes by our first home time buyers. It was like 26%. So you're just seeing a lot of this is getting hard.
Yeah, I think, we covered a few weeks ago those couple of projects, those affordable housing projects that are coming.
Has announced 2 new projects to increase permanently affordable housing in Fort Worth. Tarrant County and Arlington has also committed $32.5 million and $4 million to fund more affordable housing.
But we're still looking at we've talked about how, corporations, non-individuals are buying more and more houses, a larger percentage of houses in the area. And that's even a tough thing to parse out because, someone could file Jimmy and EJ LLC and, we're not a corporation buying up a bunch of housing, but technically we are a corporation buying a house. Mm-hmm. But because of that, we're seeing housing supply drop. We're seeing, as property taxes increase, especially on non-homesteads where there's no homestead exemption to like limit the value of that increase. Those property taxes, landlords aren't going to take those on. Like they're, already the ones basing their livelihood around owning a house and making somebody rent it from them. So that cost is being passed on. And I think that, we are at this small reckoning point where Fort Worth as a blue-collar city, and I think that takes a lot of pride in being a blue-collar city, is kind of in this area where the wage increases are not necessarily happening. The, working remotely isn't necessarily happening. And I think it's all kind of coming to a head where being a little bit behind the times in the industries that fuel the city is going to make us feel the brunt of some of these trends a little bit more. Even though, I'll be clear, the recession conversation is outdated. GDP is growing over expectation again and again. We're not in a recession, no matter how much the Star Telegram or other publications are trying to will that into existence. But where that growth is happening might be a little bit out of step with where Fort Worth's population base is. And we could be seeing some more homelessness and evictions because of that.
I'm looking at and we'll tag this into the episode. The mayor did a tweet around this, so everyone kind of saw this coming, that we're going to have this data. I think they were impressed, that they were surprised how high it was. But in a March 2019 tweet, Mayor Matty Parker said, appreciate the TCHC's update at the State of Homeless address, which is the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition. It says, even as we partner to make historic investments in housing and champion innovative programs, we must continue to work to serve our most vulnerable neighbors. And then she had an access to the presentation that was delivered that day. Key points that I kind of saw is, 62% male, 18% children of those in homelessness, 57% are sheltered compared to 43% unsheltered. Some notable trends, they also kind of added 22% increase in homelessness, which is what the big stat is, 27% increase in unsheltered homeless. But we also saw a 27% increase in veteran homelessness and 27% increase in family homelessness. Those were the kind of the big takes there.
And I think only another thing that kind of adds to the pressing situation here is that it's only a 9% increase in chronic homelessness, which means that these are a lot of people coming into homelessness for the first time, or for the first time in a long time. This isn't a perpetual situation. So what do we do for these families that are getting evicted? How do we help figure out how to get them back on their feet, as well in the short term, as well as create long-term solutions for fixing chronic homelessness problems as well? Overall, a negative thing some negative data to come out this week, but we have seen the council prioritize investments there. Hopefully that's something that continues, because we saw the county not prioritize that and make the city put up more money towards it. And something that we'll just have to keep an eye on, especially over the summer months, to see how these stories continue to develop.
All right, well, let's head to the big story. So what we're going to do with the big story is we are going to break down all the candidate forums that the Fort Worth report did for the district seats. So we're going to break down District 4, District 7, District 11, do a recap on our takes on what we felt, how District 11 panel went on our pod. And so that's what we're going to hit. We're not going to do Tarrant Water Regional District, the school board, due to time and just focusing on the big seats for city officials. Let's go ahead and dive in, starting with 7.
So District 7 continues to be one of the city's fastest growing, mostly because of growth up north, and then it also stretches down to the cultural district with venues like Dickey's Arena, the museums, etc. We've got 3 candidates there: Caleb Backholm, Jason Ellis, and Macy Hill. One question they started with was, this area encompasses the cultural district. How does Fort Worth invest in that culture. And honestly, there were some kind of interesting responses. One that was very eye-opening to me. And I'll start with that. Jason Ellis said he believes in Fort Worth's culture, but doesn't want to spend any money on it. Instead, he wants to lower property taxes. Let's talk about responsible budgets. Let's talk about spending money in the right places. Our culture is here. It's great, but I want to save money. I don't want to spend any money on the arts or cultural system. I got to say, my man, you're walking into a district who benefits quite greatly from the amount of activity that goes on in the cultural centers there. I don't know if this is the laurel you want to rest on, because number one, if we want to talk about responsible budgets, let's look at our biggest line item, and that's the police. And let's talk about being responsible there, but I'm sure you don't want to have that conversation. And then number two, are you telling me that you don't believe in the public-private partnerships that brought together Dickies Arena, that bring together the museums, that bring together so much of what is happening in that area? Because if you're telling me that we shouldn't spend money on things like Dickies Arena, I don't know how your constituency is going to feel about that. And not even just the big projects, but the smaller projects too. What do you believe about the Community Arts Center? What do you believe about the Museum of Science and History? All of these things that take public-private partnership. Are you really saying that you don't want the city spending money on development in your district? That was probably the answer of this entire forum that I saw, was like, oh man, I don't think you know what you're saying.
Caleb wasn't any better. He talked about cowboy culture and how we need to preserve it. Fort Worth has a unique culture that is different from most of the big cities in the country, different than Dallas, just 30 miles to the east, and I think it's important to keep that. A lot of people come here and stay here because of the culture of it. I don't think
at least he acknowledges the importance of investing in the rodeo and things like that.
Yeah. No, and I think, people, I don't necessarily know they're coming to Fort Worth because of our culture. I think a lot of people are coming here because of jobs. They were asked to come here for a job, or they're a minority group who has come here to find jobs as well, who probably have no idea about stockyards or cowboys. Do I think that you're getting we are getting, when you look at the companies that are coming here, do they align with the kind of Western culture? You could say that. I know we got a boot company from California, Dickies kind of centering up more in downtown, but then you have the Carhartt stuff. Do I see people could come and gravitate to that? Yes. But, ultimately, there's a lot of people come to the city that's reflecting not what Caleb wants to protect. Clearly here in District 7, Macy Hill's, the person that needs to win this election. And it sounds like has the entire establishment behind her anyway. Has the relationship with Firestone, philanthropists associated with all these dollars. This seems like they needed someone to stop. Oftentimes I feel like people get selected to sit in seats like this because the establishment doesn't want the other candidates. And so this seems like a point when I agree with the establishment and saying if this is our options, Macy is clearly the person who needs to win this.
Yeah, the next thing they talked about was Lake Worth and protecting that area, making sure that the work over there is maintaining the quality of life that people have out there. And all of them had a pretty consistent answer there to, make sure it's clean, make sure it's safe, make sure that we're protecting our green spaces. But overall, District 7 was kind of I would say the least interesting of any of the panels. There just wasn't a ton of meat to it. I agree with you that Macy seems like the most put together and polished of the candidates.
Yeah. But District 4 isn't that exciting as well. Both candidates in District 4 described a focus on faith and family. Candidate Charles Lauersdorf, a combat veteran, said he focused on public safety, while Teresa Ramirez Gonzalez is focused on mental health concerns. This used to be where Alan Blaylock was, who moved to District 10. Which also was Carrie Moon before then. They really bring up the improving of mobility in the area. Gonzalez said, I think whenever it comes to traffic on the highways, I think our city leaders need to be engaged with TxDOT. He feels like there are other issues outside of infrastructure that he's also more concerned about, like the juvenile detention centers being above capacity. What in this one did you feel like, District 4 includes Eagle Mountain and Keller ISD. It is northeast, but it's definitely kind of have these more suburbia feel neighborhoods that have a lot of infrastructure than I would say a District 11 or a District 8, who also has, and District 5.
Yeah, I agree with them in a lot of ways that there are more pressing issues than widening our roads. Talking about juvenile detention centers, talking about how we, make sure like kids that are in trouble are getting to the right place. But this just feels like a really bleh race.
This one to me is worse than 7.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I think one of the biggest L's for Fort Worth, post expanding to the 2 additional districts, is how unequipped and unprepared for us to have quality candidates in city council. Granted, when I say that, people often say to me, well, why don't you run? And you're right. So maybe it's just a very difficult thing for people to go run and do, who are running, have families, who have jobs. So like you can't get, I don't know if that's an excuse, but District 4, we should have better candidates than what we have here. District 10, I mean, Alec Blaylock, I thought he was just kind of like a buffer because of 4 months, but no one's running in District 10. That's exciting. I would argue District 11 has, I'd take 2 to 3 of our people and put them in District 4 and District 7 than anybody who's running District 4, 7, 10.
That's the point, though, is that we pay our city councilors, $20,000 a year for a more than full-time job and expect to have this plethora of quality candidates that can give that kind of time and energy for no pay at all. And even like one of them in this, in the District 4 race says like, I don't think we should have expanded to 2 more districts. Like we should save that money and spend it in better places. One, that money is $50,000. Like, give me a break. 2, we voted on that, and say what you will about Fort Worth's voter turnout, people at least had the opportunity to make their voice heard if they so chose. Not to mean that you're not allowed to have an opinion now, but if you didn't vote back then, I don't know what you're saying now. But overall, like, we set ourselves up to purposely have weaker candidates. We put ourselves in a situation where we are bound to have weaker candidates to protect establishment in the city. And, I'm surprised that there was nobody that, got thrown into the District 4 race like a Macy Hill to, put a firmly backed candidate in there. But I think it's very clear that the people who were moved out of District 4, like Rick Herring, like Tara Maldonado Wilson, were done so that they could fight against each other and leave District 4 with a gap that it's kind of like, who's up here?
Yeah, no, 100%. And to me, that's where the argument about, is it a talent issue? Because there's a lot of talent in District 11. there's of the 4 or 5 District 11 candidates, I'd run them up against the District 4, District 7, District 10. It feels a little, oh, we have a lot of fresh, young black and brown people showing up. Oh, let's all make them from Hemphill, Nosavende to Rosemont to Riverside, all fight it out over here. So we're always going to have a net like high talented, but it's going to fight tooth and nail. And then our person in second and third don't have a voice. When really, if we had better lines, or I don't know, if we didn't do what we did to make a Hispanic opportunity district, could we have had, Tara and Rick? Well, I think Tara now actually lives more in District 11, but if a Rick and 4, how dope would a Rick and 4 be right now? I mean, because that is a Republican district, and who has had Kerry Moon and other. But so like,
oh, I mean, he would wipe the floor with.
But he would be perfect.
Yeah.
He would be perfect for this district. Where our district, which we're going to talk about, there's a lot of things that make it difficult for Rick to come out on top in a Hispanic opportunity district, where the rest of the candidates are either Hispanic, black. So he's a great guy. He's a good guy, but man, he would have. I feel his swag, his style, his brand would have thrived in District 4.
And a lot of that is because of the neighborhood alliances, like we boxed ourselves into this by being, which I understand. I understand why these neighborhoods can say, hey, we have similar interests. We want to be together. But you also rule out, oh, well, there's this other neighborhood right here that we're also similar to, but we're we don't have an alliance, so like we want to stay with them. It was a lot of weighing and pulling strings here and there, but I think the end result has been some not as exciting races as we had 2 years ago, which also cyclically is probably we had a big turnover on council last time, and so I think a lot of people are probably looking at this race and saying, am I going to beat a one-time incumbent, or do I need to give them another 2 years before maybe people start to get a little bit more tired of them? The same goes for mayoral. There's a lot of, when that people are going to show up to vote, because this is a big time and money investment for every candidate. So if you're looking at the mayoral race and you say, I don't think anyone's going to show up, is it worth your time and money to try and unseat an incumbent versus, waiting for a more passionate cycle for people?
But four and
4
7,
is just a straight up, 4 and 7 straight up empty districts.
And same with 10. Like 10 was, there's no, I mean, it's 10 has Blaylock and another guy who his background seems pretty comprehensive and impressive. So 10 might be okay, but man, that's going to definitely create a different energy. I'm not saying Gonzalez here, clearly if she wins, I raise my children with education first. I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican. I'm going to able to work with everyone. But the most important part of this is suicide. Child suicide is up 300%. So she says a lot there, but she's clearly saying this is who I am. And, it's not like she's trying to play this centrist moderate role. She's trying to play, this is who I am and what I do. And if she's going to come out while trying to catch votes this strong, and now she's going to show up at city council, this character and this skill set and perspective in city is going to bring a different energy. And then whatever comes out of District 11, who on our side, so we're going to have a lot of, even though a lot of the incumbents stay, the city hall discussion is going to look a lot different.
100%.
Yeah. Let's hit mayor really quick, and then we can dive into District 11. Anything you got from this that you felt?
There were a few things. So first off, they talked about short-term rentals, and I thought there was good conversation here. One, Mayor Parker said, like the discussion's not over. She said she supports personal property rights, although I would say that her decision says otherwise. But Jennifer Castillo, who works in real estate, says it comes down to protecting personal property rights. Adrian Smith says, hey, we should put this on the ballot for voters to decide. I think, honestly, I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't know what the, difference is between a city council decided thing or a voting thing. Mayor Parker says we wanted to delineate between owner-occupied and investor-owned, but there's a Fifth Circuit opinion out of New Orleans that prevented us doing that. I still don't see why we can't put a number limit on it. Maybe there's another decision elsewhere. Then they moved into transportation, which had Mayor Parker's most interesting answer to me, and that's that if Fort Worth wants to invest in public transportation, it's going to need to come from the state or federal level. And honestly, I just look at that and I'm like, twice last year we voted on $500 million bonds for building more roads. So clearly, if we wanted to, we could locally figure out investing in public transportation. You don't have to be disingenuous about it and say that it has to come from a state or federal level. You can say our priority is that it comes from a state or federal level because we're choosing to invest in other things here. I thought one of the, Adrian Smith said they're not sure about putting in new public transportation, but investing to make the current things that we have in place better. I think that's probably the most practical, straightforward of the answers that we got. And, Kenneth Bowens Jr. also said this is an important aspect of development. We're talking about growth. They talk about infrastructure and roads as well. So how do we develop public transportation alongside that? But really that answer by Maddie was the one where I was gave me the biggest eye roll. Come on, you can be truthful about, I know you're just trying to politic, but you can be truthful about this too.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to the panelists though, just the diversity of the panelists, the youthfulness. I mean, it's going to be tough to take down Maddie Parker. I think Maddie will be there until she doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But
I did think it was funny. This is District 4. District 4, they talked about listening to people, and it was very clear that they were talking about Bob Willoughby. And should we is he worth listening to at City Council?
What's funny here is Miss Gonzalez here. I mean, people talk about District 11 going, could there be a possibly first-time Hispanic woman in City Council? The person who has the best odds of doing that right now is Miss Gonzalez here. She's only going against one person in District 4. Could she be hosting that mantle as the first Latina city council member? That's kind of funny because everyone's been eyeing District 11 as the opportunity district. How funny would it be? District 11 is Rick Herring, and then District 4 is your Hispanic opportunity district, and there's Miss Gonzalez taking the throne. But let's go ahead and dive into our District 11 candidate forum. One, I saw the Fort Worth report one as well, and the 817 podcast one, obviously because we were hosting it. But, I definitely think I have a lot to say here. I think I need to decide when and how I say everything. I don't know if the pod should eventually have a clear who do we believe should be the candidate, especially after we just hosted everyone. And what I can say is I think I could sleep at night feeling okay with all five in the sense of they're all good people. They're all I felt very impressed in different ways. I thought Christopher, the fact that we were one of the only ones to get Christopher on, he was really impressive out of nowhere. Just really friendly, very nice. I learned a lot from him. That was the most time.
I was very impressed with, the last question. He was just I don't have a good answer for this, so I would, like to ask questions, seek people that have knowledge, and then, make a decision based off of that. I'm like, that's a very just mature, well-spoken, just like genuine response, as opposed to, pretending you know it all. That was something I really enjoyed from him.
Yeah, 100%. So, so let's go ahead and break it down. You have in District 11, you have Jeanette Martinez, you have Tara Maldonado Wilson, you have Rick Herring, you have Christopher Johnson, and Ricardo Avitia. Basically, my best takes that I can give you thinking through this is I think you have 5 candidates, and I can clearly see where 4 are. Christopher Johnson's kind of like, I'm not even sure if he's taking it this seriously. I mean, even his Facebook page still says District 8. Like, he doesn't have a website. He didn't show up to the Fort Worth debate. I'm not sure how honest he is with himself of wanting to do this. So taking him out, the other 4, you kind of have Ricardo Avitia, who's like, I'm the working class candidate. You have Rick Herring, who's like, I'm the home association candidate. Jeanette Martinez is becoming, and to me, one of the biggest shockers of it all is like the establishment candidate. Like, there's a lot there. And then you got Tara Maldonado Wilson, which I'm going to put her in a bucket of the progressive candidate. Like, she's the most progressive of the 4. And so you're seeing this kind of battling out for the next month. Who is going to gravitate to most of a District 11, which I thought was interesting. Like, I love what Rick Herring said around all the other councils wrote in their institutions, and like, they took all the institutions, right? They kept TCU, they kept Wesleyan, they did all the things to keep their assets. So we're just a district with a bunch of neighborhoods. I thought that was interesting. But that was probably my overall summary of District 11 is like, that is going to be the battle. What is your kind of overall take after running the District 11 debate and then also reviewing the Fort Worth one report?
Yeah, and I think the next step to what you said is not just we're a bunch of neighborhoods, we're a bunch of neighborhoods that the city does not invest in. And I think that every candidate understands that deeply and feels that deeply and wants to change that. I was really impressed with, we've had Tara on twice before individually for the other races that she has run in the past. And she has this, like chaotic, like I'm going to go like bulldog energy, which she still has now, but it's in a much crisper, more clean, and, even though she is more long-winded, more concise than she has been in the past. Like, I think you can tell a real difference in her energy this time around as opposed to the previous 2.
She's definitely gotten better.
Yeah.
Like, her first 2 interviews with us were underwater. I think the first one, she remember she had to like call us back. She was like doing something else. Like, I feel like everyone's been rooting for Tara to get her feet established as a candidate, and she's definitely got elevated. Like, I think her brand has gotten really strong, which is, to me, was one of the more like exciting parts of the debate. I was like, oh, okay, you're bringing it with some points, with some perspective, with some personal personality, with some conviction and clarity, and then you're also branding yourself as the part. I've seen her several times in public, and I'm like, okay, you're out here trying to really showcase. I think what she ultimately is going to need, though, if she's going to be that progressive candidate, and if District 11 is a Democratic candidate or a progressive territory, she's going to have to, in my opinion, get someone at the establishment level to endorse her, which is going to be hard because, I mean, Jeanette has all the endorsements more than everyone else combined from like the establishment perspective. So can she get a Jared Williams, a Deborah Peoples, a Ramon Romero, somebody to say, hey, I've seen Tara grow, and anyone more ready and qualified and has the talent and energy to do so, it's Tara. Like, that's what she kind of needs to align with all the growth. I'm proud of her as just like seeing her grow as a Fort Worthian.
Yeah. And then I think the person who surprised me the most was Jeanette. You can tell that she's using the same ad agency that like Greg Abbott, other statewide Republicans, very conservatives have used. You can tell that she's a little bit uncomfortable in her messaging, and that came across for us as a little bit more jumbled, very concise answers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you could tell that she just wasn't sure exactly how she should message herself. And I think that also came across at the Fort Worth Report panel. But she does have the donations of, when you look through her donations, it's the donations of the establishment type of people.
And they don't have to do those until April 6th.
Yes.
So I'm very interested to see that list.
Yes.
And what you're saying is the Murphy-Nasica agency, which is an agency often used by the Republican candidates. I know Carlos Flores used it as well, but he's a Democrat candidate,
quote unquote.
And I know, Jeanette's has the blue donation as a Democrat. I definitely do believe that all of this establishment endorsement to Jeanette is very eerie.
It's very it's clouded a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think, like her closing statement for us about, you never know when you're going to get shot through a window or something.
Yeah.
It felt very, very copsy, the way that it was presented just felt like she's still getting comfortable in that messaging, that it's not necessarily who she has been or is through and through. And so I don't know. There's only like a month till election time. Can she like button it up in a way that's enough to get to a runoff? Because then also, like, we are a district of neighborhoods that are underinvested in. Will people see all of the Facebook ads, all of the apparent funding when that comes out, where that funding has come from, and be like, oh, like, if that's who's backing you, they haven't worked for me before, so why would I vote for the candidate that they're backing now?
Yeah. This is a tough one. I mean, I'm interested to see how Jeanette interweaves back her own voice or her own vision with the campaign notes that she's getting. Because, I mean, even just the whole back to basics messaging is very tuned to a narrative that, like, you don't get that unless someone was crafting that for you.
Yeah.
And so, again, do I 100% know this whole Murphy-Nasica agency stuff is what's going on? Like, I don't think we really know until they start posting who's they're financing, who's supporting them. Like, that detail is still out to see. But it definitely seems like, Jeanette was a passionate working person in Fort Worth, had the opportunity to run, because there's like also like this like mixture with Crystal Galvin was going to run, and then instead she endorsed Jeanette. It sounds like Jeanette maybe only had a couple of hours to decide, like a 24 hours to decide if she should run. But then once she did that, she got like all, like, it seems like the system also then got aligned with her. So I think she's looking at herself today in the mirror like, dang, what just happened in the past 2 weeks where I went from, I'm going to run for city council, I think that's a good idea, to now, holy smokes, you got all these endorsements, all these other people now expecting you to be something that you're not even, like, you haven't even fully fathomed yourself. So I think, like, it's going to be interesting to see how she matures her own voice, her own ideas within what she's receiving from the establishment, and that she become a pawn like Flores, who, yes, is a minority figure, but is, hollow inside when it comes to having his own takes.
Yeah.
Like, that's my fear, and so, but I'm going to give benefit of a doubt on time and speed to see what happens on that. But let's go move to some other candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ricardo, like, we talked about his work for a long time since Hempel No Se Vende first launched. I I'm excited that he ran. I'm glad that somebody from that Hemp Hill Corridor community stepped up and said, hey, this is a chance for our community to take hold and really grasp a position that we've kind of been shut out from in the past. I think he is maybe in a place where Tara was last election, where it's still a little bit unpolished. Like, I think if he continued to invest in this level of running in races like these, like, we would continue to see him grow and grow more as a candidate, because it's obviously clear that he's very passionate about his community, very passionate about communities that fit into the same buckets as his, and wants to listen to people and have their voice be heard. So, I mean, I really appreciate that he's running, that he's making this time and money investment. I'm seeing more of his signs out now this past week.
I was in the Hempville area for an estate sale. Do you see that crazy house that went on estate sale?
No.
It was like some doctor who was 90 or whatever in the Ryan's place. But yeah, me and my wife went, and he has the Hempville area. He is rocking. I mean,
yeah, he's gonna get votes. I think that's the thing with all 5 of these people, is that they have their communities and they're going to get votes.
Is it possible that someone comes out with the majority? And when I say the majority, I'm talking specifically Rick here. I think Rick,
that they get to 50 to avoid a runoff.
Yeah. Like, because the Hispanic population leadership team, and then Christopher with Polly, are they all going to get their neighborhoods? Yeah, he still won't get enough then. I don't know. I just don't know how much of outside of his neighborhood he gets. But it's definitely, it feels like he's the leader of the candidates of someone's going to go against him.
Yeah.
And
signs are everywhere. Meadowbrook, the Meadowbrooks are kind of the unclaimed territory in this district right now, in that there's not a candidate from here running, right? Like, you've got Rosemont represented, you got Hemp Hill, you got Riverside, you got Pauley, and so
big man, you're on fire. You're right.
The Meadowbrooks are massive, and they're unclaimed territory, and Rick has a good relationship with the Meadowbrook Neighborhood Association, and so that's a lot of the signs that we're seeing interspersed here. I've seen a little bit of Tara, I've started, seeing a little bit of Jeanette, but the majority of what you're seeing is Rick Herring, and so can the Meadowbrooks are going to be the difference maker. Can they get Rick to 50% on a first vote? Can they get Tara to 50%? Can they get Jeanette to 50%? I don't know.
Yeah. It's just going to be so different. So let's hit again. I think like Rick is a listener. I think Tara's a listener. We're probably going to get messages about all this stuff. But to me, at the end of the day, I thought Rick was a great, if I had to say who did the best on our debate, it was Tara and Rick, just from preparation,
messaging. They know their messaging.
Yeah. Like everyone else you can tell they were working on who they were. And a lot of people said everyone else did better on the Fort Worth report one, because they kind of got their shot here. They kind of worked on a couple things. But the thing with Rick is that's going to be a challenge for him, is everyone's coming at him for the whole diversity thing. And I mean, on the Fort Worth report, they did a whole how are you going to talk to a Spanish speaking audience, and do you know Spanish? That was the question. And then Ricardo just speaks in Spanish.
I think Rick handled that well, though. He was like, I'm going to hire somebody who is bilingual. Perfect. Other council members represent other communities, and they're not bilingual. Also very true. I think he has handled that. I don't want to say attack, because it's not. I don't think it has come across aggressively. Maybe he feels like it has. But I think that he has handled that question well.
Yeah.
And has a plan for it.
And I think for me, I don't think I'm an average voter in the city, but what's going to, for me, for Rick, it's like, hey, you're going to say you're about diversity and you can get the voice. Because even in our panel, I think it was Tara who kind of went at him, was like, I don't think he has the voice. And he's like, that's not true. I have, my local community, but I just kind of find it untrue. If this goes back to what I said, to me right now, it's a battle between Carlos Avita, who has the working class, Jeanette, Martinez, with
Ricardo Avita.
Ricardo Avita, who has the working class, Jeanette Martinez, who has the establishment, Rick, who has the home associations, and then Tara, who's kind of definitely the most progressive. And so does District 11 vote on values that they usually, their democratic values do that they usually do, or are they going to use this time to like go a different angle? And Rick, to me, it's like the home association crowd has not proven that they can be for the diverse person in their city. Like if you go back and look at their, I have 30 years of home association experience or working with the community. You look at home associations, they have clearly have not done a good job of getting black and brown voices in their home associations. And that's not a knock. We have good people in our home association. I'm just like, look at the audience. Who are we representing? Who voices are actually being heard? And so like, to me, I think Rick has a lot of work to still do to show that he can be for the diverse voice, because just because you have the home associations, that doesn't mean you do. And I think everyone has an Achilles heel this race. And I'm excited to see how Tara handles being the most raw, kind of needing to get more progressive support, how Jeanette handles getting her voice through her establishment play that she has, how Rick shows that he can be for the people of all people. And then Ricardo, like you said, can he be bigger than just the Hemphill-Nosa Venda area? Can he showcase and articulate his message and story across the entire district? Every candidate has something they're fighting for this next month that they need to uplift and show to get voters excited to come out. So I think that's exciting. That's, to me, like the overall, we're an hour in. I think that's the bow that I would share with our listeners, is like, then you all got to look at what you see as most important.
Well, I think that's a good bow to tie on to it. We'll definitely be talking about this more over the next month. But let's move into our wins and losses. I'll start with my loss. This one might be a loss for a while, but Fort Worth Report published an article. Here's how a single line cost Fort Worth $7.6 million in cost overruns on its new city hall, bringing the total cost overruns so far to $50 million. Wow. So after discovering part of the project site falls into a federal floodway easement established in 1954, the city announced they'll be forced to spend that additional money because of delays in permitting costs. This is for the new city hall that is adjacent to the Pier 1 building. Y'all were so confident in these drawings, in these surveys, that you didn't even think to double check with the federal stuff. And so now we're having to, go through the Army Corps of Engineers to get a special, I think it's a Section 408 permit to allow works projects like a floodway easement when it says it will not harm the public or reduce the efficacy of the project. Like, come on. I'll make this personal. When we were opening the Granbury Theater, we couldn't figure out where to put a bike rack. They held our project back for 6 months as we tried to figure out where to put a mother effing bike rack. And we would read through all the code. We would be like, okay, like this spot here looks like it fits. Send it to them. They send it back note after like a week or 2 weeks. Be like, no, that doesn't work. So then we'd be like, okay, like, can you help us out? Like, can we meet together? Blah, blah, blah. No, like, you got to figure it out. Okay. So then, we start calling in bigger guns, calling in favors of people that we know to try and like get meetings over and over and over again. Guess what? We lost the bike rack during construction, never put it out, and like they never even checked it. That cost me 6 months of my life.
Yeah.
Yet you're out here spending $50 million of the city's money because you couldn't take however much time to double check this. Like, get out of town.
Yeah.
Big loss. Major L.
So what's your grade on like City Hall at this point? Like the City Hall redesign, move into Pier 1. It all
I mean,
like
it's
a good
hard to
idea.
say.
Yeah.
It's like hard to say because I'm sure whatever we were building from scratch would also have had cost overruns.
Yeah.
They're still going to be like, this was cheaper than what we were going to do. I would, I think that there's been a lot of tough looks with this, and that goes in combination with the changes to how public comment is happening at city council meetings, that maybe make city council currently feel even less accessible than it was pre-pandemic and pre the move. So I don't know. I mean, they're probably passing, but not by a ton.
Yeah. Well, mine's my loss kind of goes into the same thing you're talking about, cost. But mine's at the county level. Tarrant taxpayers have spent $26.6 million on software that doesn't work. Is it time to pull the plug? So $2.6 million on a court software system since 2011, and the program has not gotten off the ground. TechShares.Courts is a software that we were going to use to help us be more effective and efficient on how we operate. And Travis County pulled out of this project in 2016. Dallas County gave up in 2020 after spending $35 million. Tarrant County's price tag continues to climb, and commissioners unanimously voted to put another $500,000 toward the program during a March 7th meeting. But the document does show that the number could reach $6.3 million additional dollars. To spend this kind of taxpayer money and to ability to implement it, this is a massive L. And again, don't let anyone tell you that we're a conservative, fiscally responsible city. Like, that whole narrative just needs to stop. We got Panther Island. We got City Hall. We got the county, can't even get a software implemented. That's been something you chose in 2011.
I want to know which of the federal or state officials' kids are running this, because this feels like a Kay Granger Panther Island thing.
Yeah,
where you've got
someone you golf with.
Yeah, Houston looked at it as like, oh, this is dumb. Like, we already put too much money into it. Dallas is like, maybe this is a state rep that kind of covers our area. We'll let them string out. And then finally in 2020, they're like, nah, like, you guys this is too much. And then you got Tarrant County like, oh, this is, Kay Granger's great nephew who's married to some other establishment person's kid. Like, let's just keep plugging it along. Yeah. Because there's no way that this is just like a clean bill that we're just funding.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the L on my end. My win is Texas Fort Worth's Nanoscope Therapeutic reports groundbreaking trial results. Tech Fort Worth is a hub of kind of an accelerator, a coaching program that helps tech companies flourish in the city. They've been around for a couple decades now. They also facilitate really our only VC, angel group, Cowtown Angels. So one of the startups there on Thursday announced its MCO-010 therapy to restore vision to those impacted by a group of rare eye diseases have received fast-track designation from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration after its most recent clinical trial demonstrated positive and unprecedented results. This is a big win.
That's cool.
For Fort Worth Innovation. This is a big win. We do this a lot, technically, I think, in Fort Worth, where we get stuff like this. The problem is, does it ever lead to businesses, or does it lead to products that then get acquired by big companies? But all in all, like, shout out to the founding team who has been making this happen. And they previously received a $3.5 million grant from the National Institute of Health and been working on this since 2009. Love that consistency and committed to making something like this work.
My win is the current exhibit going on at the Amon Carter Museum of American Art, and that's called Emancipation, the Unfinished Project of Liberation. It's on the second floor, runs through July 9th. And it is meant to visualize what freedom looks like for Black Americans today and the legacy of the Civil War in 2023 and beyond. It highlights the perspectives of a number of contemporary Black artists who were asked to respond to John Quincy Adams Ward's bronze sculpture, The Freedman, from the Carter's permanent collection. That was initially sculpted by Ward before the end of the Civil War, and depicts a figure on the cusp of liberation, having ruptured his bonds, though they are still present as a reminder of his enslavement. It's one of the first American depictions of a Black figure cast in bronze in 1863. I haven't been yet. I really want to go, but my win is just that I love that the Amon Carter and our museums in general do a really fantastic job of highlighting different perspectives. And a win. The reason I found out about this was during a commercial, I think for a Final Four game, or it was a commercial on TV, on connected TV, so on YouTube TV. And I was like, that's awesome that they're putting the money behind this to be highlighting it on not just like their social medias. So if you have the chance, I would definitely take the opportunity to go and see this exhibit through July 9th. I think it'll be something we'll definitely enjoy before we go.
Yeah, no, great stuff. I definitely got to get there. We've already talked about getting out there, so we will definitely be doing that. Guys, thank you for joining us for the 817 podcast as we review candidate forums for Fort Worth leadership. As we know, early voting starts April 24th, ends May 2nd. Election day is May 6th. I think we're still processing our own feelings and ideas around, who we're all going to vote for, who we're going to see thrive in the city, but continue to use the 817 podcast as a resource, as a soundboard, to something that allows you to check your own reality, audit your own perspective. I feel like that's often what it does for me and Jimmy as well, and it's been great to be a source, and also all the new people, welcome. And the District 11 candidate forum has become our most fastest growing, highest viewed episode in a long time. So enjoy that if you have not.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for tuning in every week, and we'll see you next Monday.